everyone, and welcome back to the Wisdom by Harry YouTube channel. My name is Harry.
And I'm Mary. We're so excited to have you here today for another fascinating episode.
We're going to be looking at, something that I think everyone's heard about but might not fully grasp, like what it actually means.
Right.
And that is your impact on the environment.
Yeah.
And you've given us some really cool material to dig into on this.
Absolutely.
And I'm excited to kind of get into it with you.
Yeah, this is going to be fun.
Yeah. So it looks like the material comes from some kind of a YouTube channel.
It does. Yeah, it's called English Podcast Zone.
Okay.
And the hosts, they really go into this whole thing about like what exactly is a carbon footprint.
Okay.
And they even, give some tips and tricks on how to reduce it.
Cool. So let's just jump right into that then.
Okay.
When we talk about carbon footprint, I mean, it's not actual footprint, right?
No, it's not. You're not going to see like a sooty carbon footprint on the ground.
Right. So what does it actually mean?
Well, think of it this way. Like when you walk on the beach, right?
Uh-huh.
You leave those footprints in the sand.
Yeah.
Your carbon footprint's kind of like that. Oh, okay.
But instead of leaving marks in the sand, we're leaving, a trace on the environment with all the carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases that we generate.
So like every time I drive my car
Exactly.
or use electricity,
Uh-huh.
even just breathe,
Yeah, even
contributing to this footprint.
That's right.
Yeah.
It all adds up,
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the material you sent me, it actually brings up a really important debate about how severe our impact is, specifically when it comes to this whole global warming thing.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because some people are like super concerned about global warming and other people are just like, that's mumbo jumbo.
Yeah.
So like, why is there such a difference in how people see this issue?
I think it's a really complex issue.
Mm-hmm.
And the material does a good job of showing like how many different sides there are to it.
Okay.
I mean, some folks see global warming as this like urgent crisis that we created,
Yeah.
while others believe it's just part of like a natural cycle, or that it's way overblown.
And that mumbo jumbo comment you mentioned?
Yeah.
That really highlights, I think, distrust that some people have about the science behind climate change.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So, we have all these different perspectives.
Yeah.
What really stuck out to you, like, in those different views?
I think it was interesting how the material, regardless of where you stand on that whole, global warming debate,
Right.
they really stress taking action.
Okay.
It's like they're saying, even if you don't buy into all the science, there are still good reasons to try and live more sustainably.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
And that actually ties in perfectly with their whole discussion about going green and being energy efficient,
Right.
which seems to be something that everyone can at least agree on in the material.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on all that? Like, is it all just buzzwords, or are they giving us real solutions?
I think it could be both, honestly.
Okay.
It's really easy to throw around words like eco-friendly without really understanding what it means.
Yeah.
But I think the material does a good job of giving some solid examples, like, hybrid vehicles and solar panels.
Right.
What do you think about those? Are they realistic for most people?
That's a great question. And one of the people in the video even mentions, they live kind of out in boonies,
Right.
and it definitely makes a difference.
Right, yeah.
But they still emphasize that even small changes can have a big impact,
Okay.
like using reusable bags or carpooling, things like that.
So location really does play a role in all of this.
Absolutely. And the material really dives into that.
Oh,
like
yeah.
in cities, you often have more options for public transportation.
Yeah, makes it easier to ditch the car,
Yeah, right, exactly. But out in the country, like the person in the video was saying, it can be harder.
Yeah.
They might not have
Yeah.
the infrastructure for things like, installing solar panels or charging electric cars easily.
Right.
But they also have a different kind of opportunity.
Yeah.
A closer connection to nature,
Yeah.
more potential for things like gardening and composting at home.
So it's like finding a balance, I guess.
Exactly.
Working with the environment you have.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
And it all comes back to that idea of individual action,
Mm-hmm.
making those conscious choices within your own little world, because those choices, they really can ripple outward.
So what really resonated with you from all of those suggestions? Like what really stuck out?
I think for me, it was that whole thing about water conservation.
Oh, yeah.
They even said that water scarcity could become a bigger problem than running out of oil in the future,
Wow.
which is a pretty scary thought,
Yeah, that's intense.
And they only briefly touch on solutions like using rain barrels,
Uh-huh.
but it really makes you think about what we're doing to protect that resource.
Yeah, for sure. And, they also talk about composting. which I've always been curious about.
Yeah, composting is great.
It seems pretty simple,
Right.
like in theory,
Yeah.
but how does it actually work?
It's kind of like nature's recycling system. You create this perfect environment for tiny little microorganisms to break down all that organic matter, like your food scraps and yard waste.
Oh, okay.
And here's the cool part.
Yeah.
The process actually makes methane gas,
Right.
which you can then use as fuel.
So you're not just like getting rid of waste.
Right.
You're making something useful.
Exactly. And I think that's what they were trying to get across,
Yeah.
that interconnectedness of everything. Like what we see as trash could be a valuable resource with a little creativity.
Yeah.
It shows how our choices, even something as simple as composting, can be part of a bigger solution.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's really cool. I mean, it makes you feel like you can actually have an impact,
Yeah,
even with small things.
absolutely. And that leads perfectly into their point about the power of collective action. Like if everyone makes those small changes, it can really add up.
Yeah. No, that's true. So we've talked about what a carbon footprint is.
Yeah.
And we've gotten into some of the things that we can do to reduce it.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we go from, each of us doing our own thing
Right.
to actually working together to make a bigger change?
Now that's the real question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really tough one. I mean, the material mentions some interesting ideas like getting the community involved
Okay.
and focusing on education. Did any of that stand out to you?
Yeah, actually, they talked about community composting programs.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh, absolutely. Things like that can be so effective.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just about the composting itself, right?
Right.
It's about bringing people together.
Yeah.
Giving them a shared goal.
It makes you feel like you're part of something bigger.
Exactly. And when people feel connected to a community that supports these choices,
Uh-huh.
they're way more likely to stick with them.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like that whole ripple effect thing.
Totally. Like one person starts composting,
Yeah.
their neighbor sees it and gets inspired.
And then the whole block is composting.
That's the idea. And the material also really emphasizes the importance of education. Like, the more we understand the reasons behind these sustainable practices, the more likely we are to actually do them,
Right. It's not about shaming people.
Exactly.
It's about giving them the tools and the knowledge.
Right. And that can look like a lot of different things, right?
Yeah.
Workshops, online resources, community events. It's really just anything that helps people connect their own actions to the bigger picture.
Right. So it's about creating a culture where sustainability just becomes second nature.
I couldn't have said it better myself. It's a shift in values and priorities.
Yeah, and it kind of makes me think about that whole thing about consumerism.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, the material talks about the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle, which is like the foundation of sustainable living, right?
Right.
But do you think that's really enough?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a good start.
Right.
But are the 3 R's really enough to deal with all the environmental stuff we're facing today?
That's the question, isn't it? I mean, it's a great framework for minimizing our impact.
Mm-hmm.
But shouldn't we be thinking bigger?
Okay, what do you mean?
Like, what about creating a positive impact?
Oh, okay.
Not just reducing the bad stuff, but actually restoring and regenerating what we've messed up.
So going beyond just like shrinking our footprint.
Yeah. It's about healing the planet.
Wow, okay.
It's about shifting from that take, make, dispose mindset
Right.
to a more circular economy
Okay.
where resources are valued and reused and there's almost no waste.
So it's not just about recycling.
Uh-huh.
It's about consuming less in general.
Exactly. Being mindful about what we buy and how we use it.
Right. And it makes me think about the role that businesses and governments play in all of this.
Yeah, totally. The material mentions that a bit,
Yeah.
And I think there's a growing awareness that we need systemic change
Okay.
alongside individual action.
So what does that look like?
Well, we're already seeing a shift in what consumers want
Okay.
and how companies operate.
Okay.
People are looking for eco-friendly options,
Yeah.
and businesses are responding by adopting more sustainable practices.
So it's like this positive feedback loop
Exactly.
where consumer demand pushes businesses to be better.
That's it. And of course, governments have a big role to play too, right?
Right.
Creating policies that support sustainable practices and investing in renewable energy.
So it's like this multi-level approach.
It is. It's about getting everyone on board, from individuals to businesses to governments.
All working towards the same goal.
That's the key. A truly sustainable future.
Yeah.
It's easy to focus on the negative when we talk about all this stuff,
Yeah.
but I think it's important to remember the positives too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The material mentions cleaner air and water.
Uh-huh.
What other good things do you think will come out of this?
Hmm. Well, I know they mentioned that sustainability can actually go hand in hand with economic growth.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, how does that work?
Well, investing in renewable energy creates jobs.
Yeah.
And it makes us less reliant on fossil fuels, which are, kind of unpredictable.
Right.
And as we get better at using resources efficiently,
Uh-huh.
we'll save money across the board.
So it's not a trade-off.
Nope.
It's about doing what's good for the planet and for our wallets.
Exactly. It's about improving our quality of life, not lowering it.
I love that. So it's not just about being green.
Right.
It's about creating a world that's more just and equitable.
Absolutely. And it all comes back to that interconnectedness we talked about.
Right.
Our environment, our society, our economy, it's all connected.
It's about making sure everyone can thrive, not just a select few.
That's it. And the material really drives that point home. They remind us that even our smallest actions can have a ripple effect.
Yeah, and that's what I find so inspiring about all of this.
Yeah.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of the problem,
Right.
but we're not powerless.
Exactly.
We all have a role to play,
Yeah.
and every little bit helps.
It's about taking ownership and recognizing the power we have to make a difference. What's a really inspiring example of that for you?
Well, they mentioned Earth Hour,
Yeah.
where everyone turns off their lights for an hour.
Oh, yeah, that's a great one.
It's such a simple thing,
Right?
but it sends a powerful message.
It does. It reminds us that we're not alone in this.
Yeah,
There's a whole global movement of people who care about this planet.
and when we work together, we can really make a difference.
Exactly. It's about understanding that we're all connected.
Yeah, and that our actions matter.
They do. And it all starts with awareness. The more we learn about these issues, the better equipped we are to make good choices.
Yeah. This has been a really eye-opening conversation.
Me too. It's amazing how much we can learn from just talking about this stuff.
But before we move on,
Yeah.
there's one thing that's been bugging me.
Okay.
The material focuses a lot on reducing our negative impact, but they only briefly mention one really innovative solution, and it's the biodegradable plastic made from corn oil.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And it made me think, what other possibilities are out there? What if instead of just trying to reduce our consumption, we could actually reinvent the materials themselves?
No, that's a brilliant point. I mean, that bioplastic is a perfect example
Yeah.
of how innovation can lead to more eco-friendly solutions.
It's not just about using less plastic.
Right.
It's about creating a different kind of plastic.
Yeah, that's the future right there.
Yep.
So where do we go from here? It really does open up a whole new way of thinking,
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Like, instead of just mitigating the harm,
Mm-hmm.
we're actually looking at ways to regenerate.
So not just reducing our footprint,
Right.
but actually making things better.
Exactly. And I think we're seeing that in a lot of different areas.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, renewable energy is a big one, obviously.
Okay, yeah.
Things like solar panels and wind turbines and even geothermal systems.
Right.
Those are all about creating energy in a way that doesn't hurt the planet.
Makes sense. What else?
Oh, there's regenerative agriculture.
Okay, I've heard of that, but
It's basically farming in a way that actually improves the soil
oh, cool.
and helps to capture carbon from the atmosphere.
So it's like a win-win.
Exactly. And even the fashion industry is getting in on the action.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, they're starting to use more sustainable materials
Yeah.
and moving towards a more circular model where clothes are reused and recycled.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It really does feel like things are starting to change.
They are. It's really exciting to see. And I think that's what the material was getting at,
Well,
It's not just about waiting for someone else to fix things.
Right.
It's about each of us taking responsibility and becoming part of the solution.
So what can people actually do? Like, what are some concrete steps?
Well, the material had some good suggestions, right?
Yeah, like reusable bags and saving water and all that.
Exactly. It's about those everyday choices that we make, recognizing that they can add up to something bigger.
But it's not just about those little things.
Right. It goes beyond that. I think it's about becoming more informed
Okay.
and more engaged as citizens.
So, like, what does that look like?
Well, it could mean staying up to date on environmental issues,
Yeah.
supporting businesses that are doing things the right way, and speaking up for policies that promote sustainability.
So using our voices and our wallets.
Exactly. Creating a demand for change.
Right. So it's about a multifaceted approach.
You got it. Personal choices, supporting businesses,
Yeah.
and engaging in the political process.
All working together to create a more sustainable future.
That's the idea. We're all part of a system,
Right.
and our actions, both individually and collectively, can shape that system.
It's amazing to think about.
It is.
Like, we're not just along for the ride.
Uh-huh.
We can actually steer things in the right direction.
And that's a really empowering feeling, I think.
It is. But, it's also a journey.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no finish line when it comes to sustainability.
It's a constant process of learning and adapting and evolving.
It's not about being perfect.
Nope.
It's about trying to do better.
Exactly. Making more informed choices. And working towards a healthier planet.
And finding ways to enjoy that process.
Oh, for sure. Sustainability shouldn't feel like a burden.
Right.
It's about creating a world that's more vibrant and resilient and fulfilling for everyone.
That's a great way to look at it. So it's not just about protecting the planet.
Right.
It's about living in harmony with nature.
Yeah.
Building strong communities. And creating a future where everyone can thrive.
And that's a future worth fighting for, isn't it?
It is. This has been a really inspiring conversation.
Me too. I've really enjoyed it.
And I think it's given us a lot to think about.
For sure. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay.
Sustainability isn't just about saving the planet. It's about creating a better world for ourselves and for generations to come.
It's about living in a way that benefits everyone and everything.
Exactly. So thank you for joining us on this journey of exploration.
And until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep taking action, because together we can make a difference.